He has traveled to Baltimore, San Diego, and elsewhere to help launch the PPAs. He is also a contributing editor of the Workers' World newspaper. He and his partner, comrade Julie Fry, just became parents of a beautiful girl, Niciola. Congratulations.
I'm sure if Ciola was here, she would appreciate all the applause for her. I'm a little bit out of sorts. In some ways, I feel like I've been hibernating. And I say that because it's not that I have not been aware. When you are sitting around the house and you're caring for a baby, you do have time on your hands, and you can watch the bourgeois media, and you can read other sources of media like our paper, Workers' World, and other, progressive or revolutionary sources. So I've been doing that, but I feel somewhat disconnected because, we've been up to our elbows in diapers and spit up and things of that nature. And anyone who knows our little baby squirrel knows that she can go through some diapers. And I'm sure if this exists somewhere 18 years from now, she will be quite upset that I mentioned it. So feel free to delete this. But she is well. She's tiny, about that big maybe, and she's a serious, no-nonsense little baby like her mother. And she's a little bit stern like her pop. And we love that about her. And I can't say enough. I can give a whole talk on that. But I won't, unless you want me to. But when I have a very deep, and anyone who's ever met her, anyone who's ever seen a picture of her, but I have a very deep personal love for this wonderful little thing, and I feel like it's probably one of the greatest things that I've ever done, which is help bring this little person into this world. But I see every little baby through her eyes, which is, they've yet to take their permanent color. Just like I see her when I look at any other little baby. And I think that that's one of the things that makes us revolutionaries, is because many of us come from very personal, tragic hardships. But it's our ability to generalize from those individual personal circumstances to see that it's not just a matter of our own hardships, but it's a systemic problem that creates these conditions that people have to struggle and fight through. It's a problem of the capitalist system that makes people feel that they're a little bit less than human because of the color of their skin, or because of their sexual orientation, or how they manifest themselves, or because they're women. It makes you feel a little bit less like a person, instead of the human family being so vast and different, and our rights to choose who we want to be with, and our right to exist on this planet, no matter what the color of our skin is, or what language we speak, or what our nationality is. This system, this cold, uncaring system, it's very odd that the capitalists, the bourgeoisie, live on the exact same planet that we do, right? Somewhere. And hopefully we can get them off. I think they're planning a mission to Mars. Maybe they can go there permanently, and we can destroy their ships when they get there so they can't ever come back. But they live on the same planet, but the capitalist mode of production does not allow them to think about sustaining that planet, right? It's not that they might not have some sort of conscience about, you have bourgeois people who think, that they care for the environment. And sometimes if there's a niche and they can profit off of it, you will see them build, such as the hybrid cars and things like that. It's not because the capitalist mode of production is trying to protect the planet. It's because there's a niche and there's a market out there for that. But the mode of production does not allow for the protection of the environment. right? And they don't so much care about that, even though they live on the exact same planet. The Typhoon Yolanda or Haiyan in the Philippines, which is measured as being the most powerful storm the world has seen, is a direct reflection of the degraded environment that we have in this country. It's a reflection of the warming of the seas. It's a reflection of the melting of the ice caps. It's a reflection of all these things that are created because of the capitalist mode of production. And the fact that people are so disproportionately impoverished in the oppressed world is because of the capitalist system, the imperialism, which is an outgrowth, an objective outgrowth of capitalism at a certain stage of development. And of course, we know that the Philippines has had a neo-colonial relationship since the U.S. took over from the former colonial rulers, Spanish. And so it's a very impoverished nation, and you see people are suffering still, but people won't suffer in silence. They will go to the stores and they'll liberate the things they need to survive. And we're seeing that happen now in the Philippines. But it should be social property. Well, actually, you can say that they're making it social property, right? But this exists because it is from the oppressed world. It's a very odd thing if you look at history, and if you look at Africa and the oppressed world, and you look at these parts of the world that, because of the resources they have, if it was not for colonialism and imperialism, would be much farther advanced than the European nations that are imperialist nations in the U.S. because of the resources. But it's because of that long history of colonialism, slavery, and genocide, and later imperialism, which has underdeveloped these nations. And I bring that up, I'm talking about people's power, and this is very much related to that. Because I think that as we go forward and we build a struggle against the conditions that we face in this country, we have to have a sense of internationalism. We have to look at working people and oppressed people globally, not just internally, and the fact that we're interconnected. The ruling class understands that. This process of driving down wages, this process of destroying the ability of making Michigan a right-to-work state, the attack against workers' union rights in Wisconsin and all over the country is part of a process of them driving down and leveling off wages around the world. Because they see that there is this global competition that exists in this world for our very survival, and capitalism has made it, and imperialism has made this so. But right now in this country, we see the attacks being ramped up. This is evident in the fact that $5 billion was recently just cut from food stamps in this country. We see it in the fact of the austerity that has been passed and the continual budget cuts that cut not just important social programs, but are cuts to education and cuts to housing and things of that nature. And, don't believe, I don't think any of us believe this, but if you were to go on, CNN or Fox, just pick one of the mainstream media, and you would see some of these right-wing pundits as they talk about food stamps, or you can go on the internet and they make it seem that people are living high off the hog. But when you break it down, it amounts to $1.50 per person per meal. That is how much money it is. And so any small cut in the food stamps, you're basically telling people you have to cut off some days where you only eat one meal or you don't have anything to eat. That's what that actually means. This is what people are facing. And the reason why that they're facing this now, and this aggressive attack is happening now, is because of where the capitalist system actually is. It's the bankers that have been saddling the public treasuries with debt and are robbing them for the past 30 years and are robbing the money that is accrued from us, from working people through taxes. And they're robbing the public treasuries and seeking and taking hold of what should be used to build up social services and to build up the sector that most people rely on to survive in this country, to provide for healthcare and education and things of that matter. But this attack is because of the system of where it actually is. It's directly related to dead-end capitalism, which is where the system of capitalism has become because it is overcapacity at this particular point in history. But one of the problems we have, and I'm sort of going to jump around, that we are facing right now is that these are this is an objective reality. These are objective conditions. But we have yet to see the consciousness always sort of lags behind the objective conditions. We've yet to see the united, comprehensive, mounted fight back that we know was needed to push them back. But you can look in other parts of the world and they have that. In Greece, they had numerous general strikes that have shut down the entire country, but they have continued to push austerity measure after austerity measure, every government, since the crisis began. So it's going to take something much more ideological, something that puts the capitalist system and the fact that these things are happening because of the capitalist system first, up front. When we begin, but in order to do that, we have to organize at a cellular level. And we have to, and it might not necessarily be, we have an orientation about needing to get rid of the system itself, but it may start with something that is very small in relation to the bigger picture. And this is a way to build up people's confidence in their ability to struggle. It's a way to socialize struggle. It's a way to break out of the isolation that a lot of people feel that they're in because they feel that they're alone and no one is suffering the same conditions that they are suffering. And I think that the comrades have done that around the country, in Baltimore, here in New York, we've done it in Philadelphia, San Diego, and in Detroit. They're fighting around the issues that are facing people within their particular city, and they're beginning to show that this is related to the system itself. And I think that is what is needed, and that is what we mean, what we mean by building the assembly and waging these struggles. And I'll wrap up, I'm sorry. Waging these struggles to build the assembly movement is because we see that the capitalist government, the bourgeois government, is not actually fighting in the interests of the people, of working and oppressed people. And because it is not fighting in those interests, because it is trying to maintain the status quo that exists and is forcing austerity and the crisis on the backs of working and oppressed people, we have to begin to build an independent power. And that independent power, in order to become a force of gravity to attract people, we have to go where people are, and we have to wage struggles around the things that affect them on an everyday basis, whether it's a street light or a stop sign. This is part of the process of building a sense of power and empowering people to fight back against the system. And this is, and I think that the way to do this, it's not like we have this blueprint. There are many different organizations that are thinking in the same way, and it's an experimental process of getting to the point that we want it to be, to the point of where we actually rival the bourgeois, the state for power. But we're not just going to jump there, and it's uneven. It's not going to be the same in Detroit as it is in Baltimore or New York or anywhere else. But I think that the fact that we have a unified perspective that we are working on, many people see that. And I think that whenever the next struggle breaks out, people will see and they will be drawn to this process in the People's Power Assembly movement and the Workers' Power Assembly movement. And I think that, it's necessary. I think it's absolutely necessary to get to that next step of where we begin to talk about overturning the brutal capitalist system, is to empower people and to build their confidence in their abilities to struggle. I know my time is up, so I don't want to continue forward. You write these talks and you're interacting with the computer and you think you have all the time in the world. And then you get up here and to you it might seem like I've been talking 20 minutes. To me it seems like 30 seconds has passed. But, I will leave you with this. I have the utmost faith in our ability to struggle and to build this assembly movement. Just like I have the utmost faith in our ability to build the party. Because if we don't have a strong, unified party, we can't be helpful to the mass movement, and we can't build the People's Power Assembly or the assembly movement in general. And by the sheer number of people here, and the fact that we have many comrades that can't be here today, and the fact that we draw people from the movement itself, whether they're workers, the USW 8751, whether they're workers, from the service sector, or whether they're people who face police brutality, we draw people from the struggles themselves. And I think that this bodes well for us as we continue to build the party and build the struggle, and to build the People's Assembly movement. And it bodes well for the working class and oppressed people in general. And so, comrades, I think that I will leave it at that. And I'm looking forward. I'm sorry I've been late and I can't stay here all day because I have to go back and change some more diapers. But I believe I honestly believe, whether I see it or not, that the future is in good hands. And I know that we will continue marching forward. And I know we will continue to build the Assembly movement, and that we will build the party, and that we will ultimately, at some point, take our place in the sun where there's hope for everyone, our entire class, and all oppressed people by overturning the brutal system and expropriating the capitalist class. So build the Assembly movement. All power to the people. Build.